Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network, where every 2 weeks we look at two films from the A24 filmography, and sometimes in between we're lucky enough to talk with the actors, writers, directors and talent involved in bringing these films to us. This week I'm joined by Academy Award winner Guy Nattiv. Guy is the writer-director of one of A24's most recent films, Skin. Skin stars Jamie Bell as Bryon Widner, who is one of the FBI's most sought-after white supremacists, covered in racist tattoos from head to toe that he has earned performing hate crimes. He conducts a destructive life and is headed down the path of no return. When he meets Julie and her 3 young daughters from a previous relationship, the responsibilities of fatherhood gives him the desire to leave the movement behind. He endures death threats and harassment from his old gang while attempting to turn his life around. Guy talks to me about the film's origins as a short film, which would eventually win the Academy Award for Best Short Film, its adaptation to feature film within the same year, casting Jamie Bell, the challenges of bringing this film to the screen, the film's place in the current climate, and much, much more. Thanks so much to Guy for joining me, and I hope you enjoy your interview. And me and Dallas will be back next week to discuss Menasha, A Good Time. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. So we're so used to the classic Hollywood story of what turned people into filmmakers. What's the experience and story of someone in Israel like, and what were the films that inspired you?
Wow. In Israel industry, the film industry is pretty young. But the luck for all the filmmakers is that we actually have a film fund, and like you guys, and we can submit our scripts and get a full fund from the States, and we don't have to bring the money back. So it's kind of, and also we have co-production with France and Germany and Canada, and so the options are not bad. The problem is that is basically you make a lot of films that are below $1 million, and it's like kind of like you have to stretch a lot, and the budget is really low. But as an Israeli filmmaker, I grew up like every Western country on films from the 70s and 80s. I remember my father took me to E.T. and The Goodfellas and the Untouchables, and I grew up obviously on the 70s cinema, like Ellis Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Midnight Cowboy, those kind of films that had a message and were very political and social. So and coming from Israel, obviously a troubled country, you have a lot of stories to tell. So it's a very small community, but Israel is manufacturing maybe 35 movies every year. So and we were nominated for an Oscar with foreign films at least 5-6 times. So it's rather a very prolific country for and very artistic country for such a small place. So I grew up watching a lot of European, French, Italian, American films, and I made my first short in 2002, which was my graduate film, and I sent it to film festivals, and from there I started doing more shorts and features, and yeah, that was my start.
One of the films that we're kind of going to focus on today is your short film Skin. What was your inspiration to write this film? Because as you mentioned, you're an Israeli filmmaker, and this is a very American story. What was your inspiration to write this film, and how did this come into being?
So I was long distance. I had a long distance relationship with my now wife, Jamie Newman, and it was Tel Aviv and Los Angeles. She's an American actress, and she was living here. And I, at a certain point, after like 2-3 years in, after I proposed, I knew that I'm going to move to the U.S. So I was looking for my first U.S. feature, because I prepared my landing in a way. And I was sitting in a coffee shop in Tel Aviv, and I, saw an article in the paper that had Bryon Widner, the skin protagonist, face fully tattooed, from being fully tattooed, transferred into a clean face. And the headline was the only skinhead who made it alive to the other side, or something like that. And the subtext was like, it took him 66 surgeries and 2.5 years of excruciating pain to become normal again. And I was reading the article, and I was blown away by the story, and by the change, which is so rare with these kind of people. And I was, I called my wife, and I sent her the article, the link, and she was blown away too. And through MSNBC, that made a documentary about them, we got their emails, and I wrote them a very long email about, myself and my Holocaust survivor grandparents, and why me, why I should tell the story. And after 2 months, they got back to me, and we Skype, and we spoke over the phone, and they told us, if you're really serious, why don't you come and visit us, see us in Albuquerque, New Mexico? And that's what we did, and my grandfather, who is my, who used to be he passed away, but he used to be my hero and my inspiration. He was very anti-Germany and whatever, considered German after the war. And, it took him years and years to kind of like accept that there's a new generation of Germans. There's new generations of Polish people. And he taught us acceptance and patience and dialogue. And this is coming from a man who lost his entire family in the Holocaust, his entire tribe, which is my family too. So, he taught me a lot, and I saw Bryon Widner and Daryl Monjackin's story as something that inspired me, and my grandfather gave me the green light. He said it's a very important story to tell to the world. So we went to Bryon's house in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we met with them, and it was an amazing meeting, because I'm the first Israeli Jew that he met in his life. He's the first ex-neo-Nazi skinhead I met, so it's kind of like, it was insane. But after this long weekend of talking and spilling everything on the table, just spilling his guts, and he signed the life rights on a napkin, and I started writing Skin, the feature.
I'd read that you had people avoiding investing in the film at the start because they didn't believe that white supremacy was a problem in America. So, I mean, this is only a few years ago, but, in the past 24 hours alone, we've had a white supremacy shooting in America. What was it like working and writing on Skin and seeing the rise in Trump to the presidency and white supremacy becoming more and more prevalent?
Well, first of all, it's true. No one in Hollywood wanted to put their money in a skinhead redemption story. People told me it's not really a thing in the States. It's, there's no really racism here. It's a maybe like 12 people in the Midwest. It's not a real thing. And I told producers, look, I've done the research. It's much bigger and threatening than you think. It's almost terrorism. It's domestic terrorism. And they looked at me and they said, look, Hillary is about to become president. Obama is in power. We don't see a real threat to our country. And it's like, they didn't get it. They were living in their bubble, So coming from a very troubled country, and knowing how the right wing, took the power in Israel, I almost saw it coming. that Trump going to be elected, and it's the rise of the right wing and the extreme fascism will come to its worst in America, but nobody wants to give me the money, obviously, and I decided with my wife to do something that I did in Israel. Every film in Israel was a short. Every feature that I did was a short before, because that's the way I kind of prepare myself for the long run. Like it's a sprint before the marathon. So we put all our retirement money to do a short. Sharon Maimon, a good friend of mine from Israel, called me one day and said, "Hey, I have a great idea for a short. Here's the concept." And he gave me the entire concept, and I told him, "Oh my God, this is fucking brilliant." And we wrote it over a weekend together, and Skin the Short came to life. We brought Daniel McDonald, who's our neighbor here, and we kind of shot it for 5 days. It was my first U.S. kind of like cinematic work, and we edited it with friends from Israel. The entire post-production was done in Israel, and we sent it out to the world. And once we sent it out to the world, to producers, Trump got elected, Charlottesville happened, and then the synagogue massacre in the East Coast happened. So it's like, everything happened. And the short started, we sent it to actors. So suddenly Jamie Bell saw it. And 3 producers, Oren Moverman, Celine Recray, and Trudy Styler, who's Sting's wife, saw the short, read the script for the feature, and said we're in, because it's very, very important to tell this story. So, it's everything happened in the same year or 2 years that made everything in the zeitgeist, but also crazy, So there were two kind of producers. One that says, wow, it's really in the zeitgeist, it's really timely, but we're afraid to do that because it's too crazy to do that right now. And the other ones that said, and these are the producers that came on board, that said, not only it's important, not only we're going to shoot it this year, we need to do it for the world to see. So yeah, that's the evolution of Skin the Short and Skin the Feature.
The opening scene of Skin would eventually be mirrored in your feature, and it's such a striking image of just the son having his head shaved by his father. What is it about that image that struck you so strongly that it became used twice?
Well, during the research, I understood that the concept of the storytelling of Skin the Short and Skin the Feature, that it's all about education. It's all about education, because if you look at this guy who shot yesterday in Dallas, in Texas, in El Paso, he was a young kid who probably needed to be approached while he was 15 and 16. He's a troubled kid who was brainwashed. And and seeing Bryon Widner joining the gang at the age of 14, it was also someone who was a street kid and was collected by those radicals, by those fascists, and they taught him hate. So I understood that everything starts from education, from us as kids, as teenagers, and I thought that it's very symbolic to start the movie with this grown-up hand carving this boy into a monster, and then cut to seeing Bryon with tattoos on his face when he's like 28. But also, it's the concept of the short is, coming from the Bible. I'm not a religious person, but it's a smart sentence that says, "Our fathers ate bad fruit, and the children's teeth will be rotten," which means whatever you teach your kid gonna end up biting you in the ass. So, it's kind of a reverse violence. So I think that both Skin the Short and Skin the Feature starts with kids and it end up with kids.
When I kind of saw the Skin short film for the first time, I was really struck by the ending. That we often see people in films where it tackles racism and racist. We often see people being the victims of racism, but we very rarely see the consequences for the perpetrator. But we do in this film, and it's a striking ending. How did that evolve, and was there any sort of debate about it, and what was some of the reaction to it?
Two things happened. One, I read an article in a newspaper about a skinhead father, kind of a fascist skinhead father, who taught his son how to shoot Mexicans in the border in Arizona. And he brainwashed his son. He basically, his 14-year-old son got like hate and everything. It was really something that, he taught him, and the son became a hate machine. Um, and then one night, the father came home at 2 a.m. drunk, and the son saw his shadow and thought he's an African American, kind of burglar, um, interpreter, like intruder. So he took his father's gun, exactly like the father told him, and he shot his father in the head. And that struck me, in a way that it's what you teach your kids, as I told you before. The other thing that happened is that Daryl Lamont Jenkins, the African American activist, told me, look, because he was a consultant on the short and on the feature. He told me, look, in cinema, you always see African Americans or black people being bashed, killed, humiliated, suffering, the entire. You never see a revenge in movies. And he said, why don't you just write a cool revenge that has a message, but a smart one, and put it as the end, like, make the revenge happen. And that's what we did, because he gave us the green light. Now, how are the reactions? It's funny because African American in the States are saying, "Fuck yeah, that's a great, great revenge." White people are like more feel unease about the whole situation. I think it's white guilt in a way. But the best thing that happened to us is that two nights before the Oscar, that we had a party at ICM, my agency, and Spike Lee was one of the people that arrived to the party, and he came to me and to my people and said, "I voted for you." So once Spike Lee gave us this green light, for me it was like, all right, I'm done. It's all good.
I love that you cast Danielle McDonald in this that you'd mentioned earlier, in the short and the feature. And it's so great to almost see that her career has exploded since Patty Cakes. That film has really struck me, and I love her and everything. What drew you towards casting her in both the short and the feature?
Well, she's an extremely talented person. Um, I adore her. I adored her in Patty Cakes. Um, I think she's a real person, not the Hollywood cliche of what it means to be, coming from those places. She looks real. She's very similar to the real Julie, and she has warmth, intelligence. She's sexy, and she's a real woman. And seeing her and Jamie Bell in a coffee shop before we and just their chemistry, I was so blown away by that, and I adore this actress, and I think she's amazing. Really,
Absolutely.
she's just so authentic and real, and and she could do everything.
Definitely.
She's just a brilliant actress. Yeah.
How did you feel to be nominated for the Oscar? To be nominated for an Oscar for the short film, and then what's it like to actually go on and win it? Because you'd mentioned earlier you've previously been nominated, but this time you go that one step further. What's that moment like when you hear your name and film on the biggest of stages, winning an award like that?
Um, well, it's surreal. It's like I probably like you watch the Oscars every year, right?
Yeah.
You watch it live. I woke up like you at 4 a.m. every night, imagining myself maybe even in the crowd just to be there. But we were not the favorite to win. Um, I've got, okay. Let's go back a little bit. I was in the short list for the Oscars with Strangers, my second short, um, and we got it. My friend and I, Aristed Moore and I, we directed together and wrote it together, and we got to the 10, but didn't get into the 5, and it was a heartbreak because the film won Sundance, went to many festivals, and Fox Searchlight bought it in 2008. Um, so we were shortlisted. So this time I said to myself, I'm not going to even think beyond being in the 10. I'm not, because look, it's not an easy movie. It's an extreme movie. It's a gruesome movie. It's brutal. It has a kind of a controversial end, right? And the voter, the Academy voter is older and white, and you never know. They usually pick the mainstream movies, right? So we were not a favorite. There was another Canadian movie that was favorite to win. We were second in all the papers. Um, so we just enjoyed the moments, and getting into the 5 was already like, wow, you know. When they called our names, it was, and I always say, like, people to ask me, how does it feel? It's almost like your bar mitzvah, your wedding, and the birth of your child in the same time. It's beyond insane. It's like surreal. Until today, I'm sitting now in my bedroom right now, and on my right I have my Oscar. It's even surreal to look at it. You know, it's just surreal. It's like, and in this year, so we had this year of like, we had a short, we shot the feature, we got into Toronto with the feature, to Berlin, and then Tribeca. We won the Oscar with the short, and now we crossed the 100 film festivals with a short film. So it went to 100 film festival. And before the Oscar, we didn't even get to Sundance. We were denied by Sundance, Cannes, and Berlin with the short. You never know.
Absolutely. I mean, it's unique to have your short and feature both come out in the same year. Was that a kind of demanding time for you as like a writer director to have sort of two of these sort of on the go at the same time? Often you hear about the short gets made, it becomes popular, or maybe it wins the Academy Award, and then a few years later the feature comes along. What was it like sort of doing one after the other?
It's surreal. It's very confusing, but also very powerful. Um, it's very, very powerful. I think it's two of your kids. Two kids. Um, one is a short, kind of a baby skin, and the other is a feature skin. So it's a, and also it's a different approach to reissue them. Um, so yeah, I just it's the whole year, and the birth of my baby and everything. It's, and Alma, my baby girl is 10 months now, so it's a year that I will never forget in my entire life.
Your feature film differs from Skin to an extent. Was it always your aim to go a different road and tell a different story?
I thought about making a scene from the feature skin to show kind of like um, way of how do I deal with American actors, how do I, with American production, the whole thing. But then Shalon Maimon, my friend, came with this concept for the short, and I was blown away. So it kind of reshuffled my plans. But originally it was supposed to be a scene from Skin the Short, their feature.
All your features have been short films first, and this feels like a really unique and exciting kind of process. Why has this been such a successful model for you?
Um, Making shorts into features is really like preparing for a marathon by running sprints. It's every filmmaker. There's a gap between every feature that you make because it takes so long to make features. So you have sometimes 4 years between feature and another one until you get the cast, the money, the whole thing. So instead of basically writing, I feel that sometimes you need to refresh this muscle, work on this muscle. It's almost like going to the gym. It's like you work on a muscle and you don't want this muscle to be soft. And it's the directing muscle. It's the going being on set and working with actors muscle, which I think it's very important. First, second, I think that when you direct a feature, if you can try the concept, try stuff, in a short, when you have creative freedom, full creative freedom, you can try stuff, you can play with stuff, you can experiment stuff, and then um, it could always like it's almost like a lab when you test stuff before you go and do the big project. So that's for me. It gives me a lot of security. It gives me a lot of It's almost like for actors, it's like a reading before doing a play or a movie. So it was always successful for me in terms of like, oh, this is the DNA, and now I extend it to an hour and a half. I love short films. I love like the medium of telling a story in 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 10. And when it works amazingly. But not every feature can be short, and not every short can be feature.
I think Jamie Bell was inspired casting for this film. Why was it for you that a British actor was the perfect person for the role as a white American supremacist?
The funny thing is that it was Israeli, British, Australian, and American telling a story about what's going on here. But racism is global, and I feel that racism exists in England, and it exists in Israel, and it exists in Hungary, Greece, France, Russia, all over the world. So for me, it doesn't matter if the actor, I mean, as long as he can do American accent perfectly, it doesn't matter where he come from. I think that Jamie Bell is a brilliant actor, one of the best actors in the world, and I think that it was for him opportunity to stretch his abilities from what he'd done before that. Um, and I think that working with him and Danielle and Vera Farmiga and everyone was just a school for me. It was almost like, I learned so much from working with these exquisite actors. And Jamie, the process that he went through, I mean, taking somebody who everybody knows as Billy Elliot, who's the opposite of Bryon Widner in Skin, and turn him into a monster was a real fascinating process for me. I Oren Moverman, and I'm giving him the credit. He brought Jamie Bell. He met him in a coffee shop, and they spoke about life, about next project and the whole thing. And he called me and he said, "Look, I met with Jamie Bell. I saw a man, not a kid anymore." And I went to Jamie to Virginia, and I met him, and I saw a man with a lot of depth and sensitivity. So, when you're portraying a monster, it was easy. It was really important for me that it won't be the cliche of just a monster. This is a tormented monster with feelings, with depth, with emotions, with a lot of stuff. And Jamie, for me, could bring that um, to the film.
And did you work together on sort of the physical and mental transformation to get Jamie into sort of that mindset and into that character?
Well, I think that I told Jamie what I want and need for the film, and Jamie told me, "Okay, let me have my process." And he did a phenomenal job gaining weight, um, going into this mindset of this dark mindset. He went to Bryon Widner. He stayed with him for a month, and he really became this person. And then he did this test with tattoos with Stevie Battles, the genius tattoo artist, not tattoo artist, but makeup artist who made the tattoos. And when he came to set for the first day, it was mind blowing. The guy was Bryon Widner. So I trust my actors that they do their due diligence and their homework. I fine tuned them while working with him, but we had a lot of discussions before he went into this journey, and I told him whatever stuff that I need.
One of my favourite things when I watched this film for the first time, I went into it blind a few months ago when I got the chance to see it at the Edinburgh Film Festival. All I knew was the poster, Jamie Bell, "Hey, I'm sold," was that it blended family drama with body horror really well. What was it like for you sort of crafting this film and bringing together a lot of different elements to create something really exciting?
Where did you see the film?
The Edinburgh Film Festival.
Oh, cool, cool. Um, what was it like? Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, so what was it like to? I think the film. What I love about the film is that it blends this family drama and tension with body horror. What was it like combining sort of a lot of these different elements together to make something as exciting as Skin?
The whole work on this movie was very complicated because it's a low budget movie. We made it for peanuts, and you had dogfights, kids, tattoos, gunshots. It was shot in -5 in upstate New York in Kingston. It was in the middle of the winter. You had a lot of extras. The opening scene had something like 200 people. Um, and I had only 23 days of shooting it. So it was an easy task for me, and I became ill in the middle of shooting it. I had pneumonia for 3 days. I was on antibiotics, and I directed from my bed. They basically brought a bed into set, and I directed the movie. But I gave everything I got, and my good friend from Israel gave me this frame, and in this frame, when I came to the States, she gave me a present, a frame, and in the frame was a sentence, and the sentence said, "You were once wild here. Don't let them tame you." It's Isadora Duncan, and which means do your art and do it the way you want to do it, and don't let anyone dictate your art, because you need to continue what you started in Israel. The fact that you moved a country doesn't mean that you're going to do a different cinema. So for me, and I promised that to my actors and myself, I wanted to do authentic, real, raw message driven and politically and socially charged movie. That's what I grew up on, and that's what I wanted to do. And I did everything in my power with the support of my amazing producers to bring real and raw cinema. I hope I did it. I hope I succeeded doing it. But it was important for me to go through this process.
You know what, you've blown my mind when you mentioned the short time scale of making this film and the budget, because it doesn't seem like that on screen. You've done something so excellent here. It's brilliant. I can't believe that. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Um,
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
what I'd love to know as well is that when a film like this comes along, and someone like A24 gets involved, what's the conversations around marketing this film and making sure it gets to the right people, and people that, as you mentioned, sort of that maybe there's that 15-year-old that this message needs to get to right now. What's the kind of conversations around marketing this film?
Well, look, it's not an easy film to market, especially now. The films about Vietnam were made 10 years after Vietnam War. So all the, Coming Home and Deer Hunter and all those very critical film about, it took a while to digest the war and until filmmakers started making films about the war. Here, Skin is in the middle of chaos. It's in the middle. Look what, you just said, look what happened yesterday. It's still going on. I don't see that vanishing at all. I just see it becoming worse. But I think Skin, and my wife told me this sentence, which is very smart, is a long-term movie. I don't think it's kind of a movie that will, attract immediate audience, and it's a hard movie to swallow. It's a long-term movie, and it will be relevant, unfortunately, even 7 years from now. So that's why I think that A24 would very wisely thought that, they wanted it to be online and in cinemas at the same time. And that's why we are on DirecTV in many, many, many millions of Americans, because, it's if you have a chance to go to the cinema, you are thinking twice if you want to see a very heavy movie, a very dark movie like that, or you want to see Spider-Man. You know what I mean? It's not an easy movie for Americans to digest. It's basically picking the wound that America suffers from today. And this movie is basically a mirror in front of our face saying, hey, this is us. This is you. Why don't you start talking about it? Why don't you start, it's not easy. But we know it's not easy, and I never wanted to do an easy movie. But this movie was sold to 55 countries around the world. It's going to have its UK premiere and going to get, we're going to screen it to BAFTA members. And Jamie Bell is getting a lot of attraction for his performance. So I hope that it will find its audience around the world, not only in the States, and that Jamie Bell will get the attention that he deserves.
Absolutely. And what was it like when I'm thinking when you said earlier on that producers, investors didn't want to touch this movie, and then someone like A24 comes along and says, "Hey, we want to distribute your film." What was their pitch to you on why you should go with them, and what was it like for you to go? A few years ago, people didn't want to touch my film, and now the people behind things like Moonlight, Lady Bird, so many other great films, Midsummer, want to take on my film. What was that like?
Oh my God, A24 is a dream. It's like being with the A club, with all these amazing films. First of all, it's I was beyond happy, and it was it happened one day or the day of the screening of Skin at TIFF at Toronto. It was the day or the night after, or something like that. It was very, very close, and we had another two offers, and we chose A24. A24 is basically I adore every movie that they make and that they buy and that they do. They're just such a quality tastemakers, and they have the guts and the vision to take movies that are not easy at all. But they are fighting for good cinema to be out there, and it's not easy. So I give them a lot of respect, and I will be always grateful for them to choose Skin because they had other options. Toronto was full of amazing movies, and I was flattered, and I still am, and I want to keep doing movies that they buy. You know what I mean?
Have you got any sort of personal favorites yourself?
Oh my god! Wow. So yeah, I like Good Time. Do you see Good Time?
Yeah, that's a cracking one. I love that.
Oh my god, it's so good! It's so good! It's so good. I love Midsommar. I think it's a cool movie. I really like Moonlight is one of my favorite movies of all time. So good. I think that here, actually, I opened their catalog to see. Wow. Okay, so here we go. A Prayer Before Dawn. Did you see that?
That's one of the few. I've seen 77 of their films, and that is one of the ones I've yet to see. It's coming up on our watch schedule.
Okay, you must watch it. It's a great film by a French director, Jean, who I met. I saw his film. He saw my film. He lives in New York. It's a great movie that really got under the radar in some ways. Such a good movie. It was shot in Thailand fully. I like Hereditary. I think it was great, and I like The Disaster Artist was great. The Killing of Sacred Deer was brilliant. The Florida Project was great. But Good Time is amazing, and then Moonlight, obviously. American Honey. American Honey is one of those movies that either you don't understand, you don't get, or you love. I love this movie. I know it's long. I know it's but I love Andrea Arnold. I'm a big fan of Andrea Arnold. I think this movie should have gotten more respect in the award circles.
Absolutely, I love that one too.
I also like Swiss Army Man.
That's always
Great.
a great
Did
one.
you see that?
Yeah, it's a good one. I've got that montage theme as part of my running playlist.
Oh my god! And the three last movies that I adore, Green Room, I thought it was great. Krisha, which is the DP of Skin the Short, and The Witch, which I thought was great.
So many excellent ones there. So many, and it's
so many.
And your film's part of it now as well.
Yeah, it's part of the the club, and I'm very honored, very honored.
It must have been a sort of an intense kind of few years for you with Skin the Short and then Skin the Feature, and really immersing yourself in quite a tough world. How have you sort of unwound and decompressed at the end of how did you sort of even decompress at the end of a day shooting films like this? Was that even possible?
I meditate. I'm a few things. First of all, my wife and my baby are my anchor. So family, for me, is the most amazing balance for everything. But I also started meditating 2 years ago, and it changed my life. I went to the David Leitch Foundation here in LA, and I got this amazing tool of meditation that actually balance your thoughts, and you think about everything when you close your eyes for 20 minutes and just go into this mindset of thinking, of digesting stuff. It's very, very important. But I'm also very focused. I'm not a newbie because I did 3 features in Israel. I made 4 shorts. So when I came to the States, I didn't come as a student. It wasn't my first feature. Yes, it was my first American feature, but not my first feature in life. So I had the security and the self confidence of that what I'm doing is the right thing. I know what I want when I tell the story. So for me, I'm coming from such a crazy country where as a kid, as a teenager, I went through war and we got those missiles and we from Iraq and we had those like crazy situation. Making a film should be enjoyable and just it's something that I love doing. So for me, it's not stressful. It's not like for me, it's just making art. It's such a beautiful. We're so lucky that we can have the opportunity to make our art. So you just take things in perspective.
And finally, what's coming next? Because Skin is my first introduction to you as a filmmaker, and I'm keen to hear what you're doing next. I can look forward to.
So my next movie is with Sight Unseen or Movement Company. Uh, it's about my grandmother, who it's a story that I wrote while I was waiting for Skin to happen. It's about a woman who is 55 in 1985. She's a Holocaust survivor, and she wants to kill herself because she's so depressed. She has post-traumatic, nightmares from the Holocaust, and she just doesn't want to live anymore until she meets. And she's a mother, 2 girls, and a husband, and everything. And she works in a bank, and it's in New York, and she meets this woman who is 32, gorgeous. Just imagine Sophia Loren when she was 30 something. And this woman is a belly dancer, and she tells her, I'm gonna make you happy. And she starts doing all those healing and spilling, and it's like fasting and meditation and dancing and know your body well, stuff that today is very mainstream. But in the 80s it was like a little bit alternative. And this woman becomes happy, and the family is like, wow, it's a miracle. How is it possible? And wow, this woman made wonders. And what we didn't know is that actually this woman is a cult leader, and she took all my grandmother's money from the reparation from the Holocaust. My grandmother stole money from the bank in order to transfer to her, and she made her divorce my grandfather and cut all ties with my family and moved to her apartment together with another 37 women. And when the police started investigating and the family started to ask questions and what's going on and this and that, she took all these women to Virginia in the middle of nowhere in the woods. She bought this plantation in a place called Yogaville, and she lived like a queen. When my grandmother was her right hand geisha, lover, sister, whatever you want to call it. And she basically, made them worship her and work her. Cut to 5 years later, my mom and my aunt are flying to Virginia to bring their mom back home. So it's basically the confrontation between the cult leader, my grandmother, and her 2 daughters.
That sounds incredibly gripping.
Yeah, it's really it's a really family drama. It's asking what it means. What are you willing to do in order to be happy? Are you happy with your original family? Maybe not. Are you happy with your spiritual family? Maybe not. Maybe you'll always be, tormented by demons from the past. But it's also about mothers and daughters and relationship between the mother becomes the child and the daughters are the grown up in charge. So it's a lot of questions, a lot of layers that my family still struggle with. And my grandmother is buried in a tree trunk in Virginia, in the woods. So it's unsolved mystery in my family, and it's something that I needed to deal with cinematically. Um, and I'm still doing the research and understand what happened. But we are out to casting this film. It's all women. It's totally different from Skin, but not that different because Skin is also a cult. It's a neo-Nazi cult, and this is a women's cult. So that's Harmonia. It's called Harmonia because the name of the cult was Harmonia.
Well, I hope that we can get you on again in the future to talk about that film, because I'm just sitting
Oh,
there going,
I
I'm
love that.
immediately wanting to see this straight away.
I'd love doing this. You're great, and you're a big cinema lover. And hopefully I'll meet you because Skin is being distributed in England, and we are out in England, in the UK, and we will be releasing the film on September 27th in approximately 12 cinemas. It's kind of a small kind of distribution, but then we'll arrange about 4 main BAFTA screenings, and around 1,000 people, BAFTA members that will generate hopefully a potential nomination for Jamie.